Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients to your veterinary practice using digital marketing. My name is Breashears, and today we have a very special guest. It is Ryan Levesque from the Ask Method company. And it is very exciting to have him. I've been trying to get him on the podcast for quite a while, and so I'm very, very excited to have him here. Today we are talking about how to use what is called the Ask Method or quiz funnels in your veterinary practice. And I think this is one of those tactics and strategies that can dramatically improve your veterinary practice's marketing. Ryan is a fascinating marketer. He's been doing very, very cool things for a long time. But today specifically, we're going to talk about how to use quiz funnels and specifically the Ask Method to serve your clients better and create marketing that is going to be far more targeted and pinpointing the needs and wants of your clients so that you can give them better service and ultimately better marketing message that's going to convert better, collect more data, and give you more control over your whole funnel. So very exciting. I think this is going to be probably one of my favorite episodes. I say that every time, but very cool and very excited. Before we start, we have two sponsors for the podcast. Are you looking to get better SEO ranking for your veterinary practice? Probably everyone I know that runs a veterinary hospital would be benefited from having better local SEO. And that's why I want to give you some free tools from one of today's sponsors. It is whitespark.ca. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO, that's veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO, you can sign up to get a free account to give you some amazing SEO tools. Whitespark gives you everything that you need for better local SEO. If you haven't heard the episode I did with Darren Shaw, be sure to go back and look at it. He is the founder and owner of this company. It is fantastic. They have Google Business Profile Management, local rank tracking, local citation finder, reputation builder. They even have professional SEO services if that's something that you're looking for. So go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO to check out Whitespark and the free tools that they have available for you. You won't be disappointed. They're really cool. Let me know what you think too. If you need help with any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out. But again, veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/SEO. Have you ever said to yourself, I wish I knew where these clients were coming from? If you've ever been wondering, what is actually driving conversions in your practice, then I have something that I think will be great for you. And that is CallRail. CallRail is a fantastic tool that allows you to measure and see where your conversions are coming from and which of the calls and call sources are driving clients into your practice. CallRail makes it really simple to not only see where your calls are coming from, but the AI tools that they have that track and record the conversation so that you can assign outcomes to the calls is amazing. I highly suggest all of the clients that I have use CallRail. And if you've ever wondered where are my clients coming from, you can try CallRail out for 2 weeks for free. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/CallRail, you'll be able to try CallRail for yourself and finally know where your clients are coming from. So for those of you who've not heard of Ryan, and if you're in marketing or interested in marketing, you've probably seen his book, specifically Ask, but he's an Inc. 5000 CEO, 7-time for his company, the Ask Method company, and is a #1 best-selling author. Both of his books, Choose and Ask, are best-selling books, and Ask was actually named Inc.'s magazine #1 marketing book of the year, which is really cool. But his work's been featured in Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Entrepreneur, and NBC News, and he's also the co-founder of Bucket.io, which is the world's leading quiz funnel technology with over 80 million end users worldwide, which is amazing. So he's got 1% of the whole earth has visited his site, which is wild. But he's been helping companies, marketers, and entrepreneurs leverage the power of questions to better serve and sell since 2008. So without further ado, here's my interview with Ryan. Thank you so much, Ryan, for being on the podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. I'm a huge fan of your books and also the products that you've made with the Ask Method.
So I appreciate it, Brandon. It's awesome to be here and excited for this conversation.
So for people who haven't heard of you, which is probably actually quite a few, most people in the veterinary industry are not super marketing savvy, although they probably have seen your book just because it's everywhere. But give us a rundown of who you are and what you do real quick.
Sure. So my name is Ryan Levesque, the author and creator of the Ask Method, and now a 7-time Inc. 5000 CEO with the company that we built, the Ask Method Company. And what we do is we work with business owners to use questions in the form of quiz funnels, survey funnels, and assessment-based funnels to generate leads and customers. And it's a very scientific approach. It's one that leverages psychology in a very deep way. And it's one that's designed to, instead of trying to sell to someone right away when they first hear about your practice or land on your website, instead you begin in a much more consultative fashion. In the same way that you probably would interact with someone if they were to step into your office and you're having a conversation with them, you're having that conversation through your web presence on your website and elsewhere by asking a series of questions to understand a person's situation before you recommend the best next step for them. So at its core, that's what the Ask method is all about. And we've developed solutions and technology that help makes that possible for practices and businesses to be able to do that with their web presence.
Yeah, and it's amazing what you've done and what you've developed. And I think that is right along the lines of how veterinarians provide service, which is first you diagnose and then you prescribe. So you're not coming in and just kind of saying you need this, right? It's what is this person about? What do they need? And how can we best serve them? And so I think there's just so much benefit to this. When it comes to how you suggest people kind of getting started with quizzes in general, why do you think that it's more effective than, my personal thought is it's probably more effective than any other type of either landing page or tool, but what are some of the psychological reasons for that in helping to get data before you start prescribing, types of procedures or what people need?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll talk about this in a few different ways. So first, we'll talk about what's the alternative. The alternative is someone lands on your website and you try to get them to book an appointment with your office, or you try to get them to download a PDF, a lead magnet, a white paper, some document or asset that they get that's presented in a one-size-fits-all way. And the problem with that is that in either of those approaches, the approach is all about you as the service provider. It's not about them. When you flip that on its head and you say something to the effect of, hi, my name is Dr. Smith, and I've been working with patients, or I've been working with clients for the last 25 years. And what we found is that when it comes to XYZ situation, whatever that may be in the veterinary space, it might be when it comes to the nutrition plan for your dog, there's no one size fits all answer. But if you take a few moments to tell me a little bit about your situation, a little bit about who you are, a little about your furry friend, at a minimum, I'll be able to point you in the right direction and recommend the best next step for you. So all you need to do is just answer a few questions, and I'll see you on the other side in just a moment. Just pay attention to your nervous system and your response to that, and how non-salesy it is, and how it comes from a place of service. And logically, it just makes sense. It's the same way that, Brandon, if you were a veterinarian, if you were a doctor, and I reached out to you and I was like, hey, my dog is having some digestive issues, man. Like, what kind of food do you recommend?
Yeah.
What you're not going to do is, I recommend this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to answer my question by asking me a series of questions. It's just naturally the way that we operate. Now, the problem is there's only one of you. And as brilliant as you may be, you can't be in all the places all the time. You're seeing your patients, you're working with your animals, you're working with your clients, you've got family, you've got all these things. But imagine if there was a way that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, you could have effectively that conversation with anybody who visits your website in the form of a question-based process that takes people down one of several paths that's right for them. So for me, I do not believe there is any alternative, and I've been doing this for a long time, there's any alternative that replicates this process. It is a consultative process that's automated at scale and allows you to serve people who come into your world without having to connect and talk to them on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we need to talk about bucket.io, because that's a big part of, you have the Ask Method, which is a great book, and it basically lets you gather every kind of problem that your clients would have, on the front end. But the tool that practically does that is Bucket .io. And did you develop Bucket at the same time that you wrote Ask? Because I got started using the Bucket software probably 2 years ago. So the book had been out for a long time, and I think it was Bucket 2.0. Now you've launched 3.0. So can you give just a quick details of what Bucket.io is?
Yeah. So for years, I had been working with businesses to implement this methodology. And what we found is at the time, this philosophy is timeless. The philosophy of asking questions, it's timeless. It transcends technology. It transcends industries. It's just the way we as human beings like to interact. There's so many layers to this, from using the power of self-discovery to the power of micro commitments. And there are a lot of psychological studies that just will validate what we know inherently to be true. And yet, the biggest question that most people run into when they hear about this is, okay, this is great. What software do I use to do this?
Yeah.
And for years, there wasn't a great option. There wasn't a great answer to that. And so when we would implement this, when we'd work with a big company to implement this in their business, largely what we were doing is a custom engineered solution, which meant that this process was out of reach for most small business owners. And that's what spawned the creation of Bucket, the technology that is the tool to integrate with whatever tech stack you're using right now, integrate with your website, integrate with your CRM, integrate with your whatever tool you're using to send email in your business, whatever you're using in your business right now. It plugs in seamlessly to be able to capture all this great information and data, feed that information from anybody who comes into this process to whatever else you might be using, and plug it into that system. And Brandon, you probably know this, but for anyone who doesn't know this, just to give a sense of scale, we've had over 80 million unique human beings around the world go through this process. And for anybody who's counting at home, 80 million happens to be 1% of humanity. It's actually 80.
That's amazing.
So 1% of humanity has used the technology that we're talking about. And I share that just to provide context and confidence that this isn't sort of like a new cutting edge, never been tested before. Is it dangerous? Is it safe type thing? There are innovations that are happening all the time, especially with the advent of AI. But this is a tried and true process that's been used across industries, across cultures, across languages, in all sorts of different spaces. And the opportunity in places like the veterinarian space is that it hasn't yet fully penetrated in that space. There are a lot of traditional ways of doing business in certain spaces, the veterinary space being one of them, that presents an opportunity to apply this to ultimately do an incredible job in winning new business and ultimately, most importantly, serving the visitors who come into your world at the highest possible level.
Yep, exactly. And with the veterinary space, you probably don't know this, but they are notoriously kind of behind the ball when it comes to any kind of technology. Like when I started this podcast 10 years ago, I actually started it because there was a practice. We were selling software at the time for veterinary hospitals, and there was a practice we had to send a computer to because they didn't have a computer in their practice. And so it was pretty hilarious. So they're kind of notoriously behind, but that is a huge opportunity at the same time, I think. And I really think that especially all of the detail that you put into developing the system, from the landing page to the value proposition that people will get, it really helps to gather data. And the cool thing about Bucket too is you can see people's responses on these quizzes, even if they don't opt in, so that you can kind of see there's just so many data points that you don't get if you're letting people self-select. And I think majority of people are just putting up their site, they have a services page, and then they're like, go figure out what you need type of a thing. And that's such a inferior process to giving them some very detailed and personalized results that you can get with Bucket. And so I really I've been through your trainings, and I can't remember which training it's called. It might just be the Ask Method training. I know you have a bunch of products and trainings, but in terms of naming, and I think we could maybe talk about some specific applications to veterinary hospitals that I think would be really kind of interesting to go through. But I mean, you're so intentional with how you frame the naming, the headlines, the value proposition, how you get the quiz going, your grease the wheels questions to get it moving, and then positioning the conversion once they've done all the work and getting people to make micro commitments.
Mm.
So first, like a few things that I think might be interesting are there's just really an endless amount of opportunities and types of quizzes that you could create that would really provide value. But I think it's a lot of times, well, when do you think are generally the best types of times to use quizzes? Like, do you think that they should be very niche? And I'll give some examples. So one of the things that we're working on right now with a few clients is doing euthanasia quizzes. So when is it the right time for euthanasia? But
Right.
you can have things as general as, is your pet, on the track for living a healthy life? Take this quiz, right? So general wellness quizzes that kind of cover all ages and breeds and species. Down to as detailed as, is it the right time for euthanasia? So based on your experience, what has been things that have worked the best? Is it more niche or is it more general?
Yeah, it's so many great questions there. So I want to make this real, and I want to anchor this to the conversation that we're having here today around actual use cases for this, so you can really envision where this might show up.
Sure.
You're right. There's a lot of intentionality that goes into this process. And I want to just take a step back for a minute, because we're using a phrase right now. We're talking about this as a quiz funnel. And I want to be really, really clear, because sometimes in professional circles, especially in the medical space, people tend to think like, oh, a quiz, is that just like one of those time wasting quizzes? Like, what Disney princess is your dog? Take the quiz.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not what we're talking about.
But people love those too. I mean, those were super popular in 2016 Facebook. That was you couldn't get away from them.
They're popular because they tap into the same psychology that we're talking about right here, which is the psychology of self-discovery. So what your clients care about more than anything else is themselves. It's what we all care about. We want to tell me more about me, right? And when you're tapping into this psychology, the power of self-discovery, we're using what we call a quiz funnel. But just to really set the stage, this is a serious business tool. This is not a flippant, just, what costume is right for your dog and just funny pictures at the end of it. This is a tool. This is more an assessment. This is more of a question-based assessment that you're using to help steer people in the right direction. So we'll use the term quiz funnel, but just so everyone has it in their mind what we're talking about. And so, like, for example, to answer your direct question, Brandon, where is this best applied? One of the best places to apply this, specifically in the veterinarian space, is to think about what are the common questions people come to you when they arrive at your practice. What do they want to know? So, and I'm just going to give some examples. I'm not as deep in this space, certainly, as you are, but you and I have had conversations about this. Sure. Is euthanasia right for you? Is TPLO surgery right for you? What nutritional plan is right for your dog? Is your dog on track based on their dog age relative to their body's age? In other words, do they have health ailments that are keeping them on track for a long and healthy life? Or are they showing signs of premature problems that needs intervention at this point in time? So as a professional in this space, the question that I might begin thinking about right now, as I've just kind of introduced a few possibilities, is what are some of the questions that you tend to get over and over again? What are the things that maybe in this moment in time that people are bringing to you? Sometimes these can be influenced by events that are happening in the news. There could be new technology. There could be a recall associated with a specific product. There could be something that's just being talked about in the soccer mom circles. Did you hear about this? You hear about that? At the dog park, what are the conversations that are happening? And if you serve other niche spaces in the veterinarian space, we live in a town where there's a huge equine population. So there's a lot of horsey people where we live. So there's a lot of horse activity. And so there's always a conversation around hay is the topic of du jour. Does your horse's hay have the right nutritional balance, or is it missing something? Take this assessment to find out now. What are the signs to know if your horse is having a healthy diet? So there are all sorts of these topics. And again, I'm just spitballing that immediately demonstrate where you start saying, man, I could have like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of these in different places in my business based on how people are entering into my world. So what I like to say is your first quiz funnel is oftentimes not going to be your last, because once you go down the path of using this in your business, you start to realize that there really isn't a better alternative to using questions in several different places. And a good starting place is where do people come to you already looking for help? What are those questions that they're asking right now?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as you were talking about that, one thing that I think that every single practice could use was, do you need to go, like it's after hours, for example, and you're closed down, but your client is trying to decide, do we need to go to the ER right now, or is it something that we could wait till tomorrow? And there's typically telltale signs that, okay, you have blood, like you go in right now, or, things like that. Obviously, you don't want to diagnose something that's medical, and you'd always err on the side of caution, give people disclaimers and referral numbers and things like that. But if you can keep people at least peace of mind, there's those types of things that definitely they have over and over again. And I think the CSR team at the front are the people that are probably have some of the best ideas when it comes to what are the questions that we continuously get over and over again that we could serve our clients better with.
Which dog food is right for my dog? Which
Absolutely.
heartworm medication is right for my dog? I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and you could probably make a list of 15 or 20 ideas immediately that are almost universally applicable to any practice, no matter where you might be located in the country or in the world.
Definitely. So I think that there's just so many ideas and applications. And the cool thing about Bucket, again, is that you get to see all of the data points for how people are answering these questions. And so one of the biggest difficulties as a marketer is we get traffic that, somebody searches for vet near me or vet open today. They go to the site and then they just bounce. And like, what was it that caused that person to not feel like they needed to, and they had the intention going in? And so that really solves so many problems of like, what are these people looking for? What are they after? And how can we better tailor the marketing messaging so that it's going to convert them?
Right. Just even imagine like going to your website, someone who's looking to possibly book an appointment. And we've been talking about a lot of these like niche applications of a quiz funnel, but just imagine a global quiz funnel on your homepage, which is asking a series of questions to understand what this potential person is looking for, right? To help us better understand if we can serve you and recommend the best next step for you. Take a moment to tell us a little bit about your situation. So first question, is this your first time here, or are you a returning patient? Oh, or a returning client. I'm a new client. Okay, great. Tell us a little bit about your animal. What type of animal are you looking for assistance with here today? Is it a dog? Is it a cat? Is it a reptile? Whatever the options may be, or something different. And think about this, if someone is perhaps looking for help with an animal that you don't support in your practice, well, let's know this up front. And what's
absolutely
great is if you're really smart and strategic about this, maybe there's another veterinary practice that's in your town that does support that. Maybe you don't do horses, but you do dogs and cats. And maybe the horse vet practice doesn't do dogs and cats. Well, you can send business in each other's direction by saying, we don't do this. Here's who we recommend. And they can do the same for you. So like when you start going down this path, you start realizing, oh gosh, like, your mind starts turning and you start saying, man, there are a lot of places that I could be using this in my business in a real way.
Definitely. So can we walk through, because there's a lot of cool features with Bucket, whether it's like the single outcome or the varied outcome, but can we kind of walk through how the process, what it looks like? Like I built lots of funnels here, but I would like to hear, your thoughts on it. I've been trained by you through videos and stuff, but so the first step is we have a landing page that people get to.
Yep.
And with that, you have a lot of intentionality on how you create that value proposition, and especially the hook and the importance of that hook. Can you talk a little bit about that as at that first step and stage, just generally?
Yeah. So first and foremost, there's I like to think about it in sort of a 3-step process. And, if you're in the business of diagnosing and prescribing, it's going to be very intuitive. So first things that we want to do is we want to attract, diagnose, and prescribe. So those are the 3 steps: attract, diagnose, and prescribe. So the way we attract is we need to have a hook that resonates with the market, that really speaks to where they're at. So we shared a few, right? Is TPLO surgery right for you? Take this assessment to find out now. So that's a hook that attracts the right type of person. If I've been thinking about that, then I'm going to be attracted to that particular possibility. Next step is diagnose. So diagnose is once a user, an end user, a quiz taker, a visitor has gotten to that landing page, they're going to click a button. The button is going to say, take the assessment, take the quiz, take the survey, depending on the context. That's going to pop up a series of questions that are introduced one question at a time. And the questions, just like in the case of a medical situation, are designed to understand the person's situation before we, and I'm going to use this in air quotes if you're listening to this right now, prescribe the best next step. When I say prescribe, I want to use that term figuratively in this context because we're not prescribing medication. We're not diagnosing a medically diagnosable disease, but we're applying the same principles. We're asking questions to diagnose a person's situation so we can prescribe the best next step. So questions are introduced one question at a time. And then from there, we're prescribing one of several different possible outcomes, one of several possible solutions. And oftentimes what we like to do is what we call a Band-Aid cure combination. What does that mean? We want to give people some type of information, advice, useful tidbit that is the Band-Aid for free. So we want to be able to actually be a useful human to people. We want to be able to say, here's what we recommend and here's the reason why. But ultimately, the cure, the real solution to the underlying problem is going to be to become a client, to book an appointment, to become a paying customer of yours. So we're providing something useful, the Band-Aid, after they take the assessment. So they're getting immediate value, and that immediate value is personalized to them. It's not a generic answer. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer that we give to everybody. It's some version of, based on the little we know about your situation, and we can't know this for sure, but based on the answers that you provided over the last several minutes, here's what we think might be the best next step for you. And here's the reason why. So you're approximating what it would be like if someone walked into your office and talked to you one-on-one and what that conversation would look like. And we're ultimately leading people where we really want them to get to, which is if they are a good fit to become a client, we want to say, well, the next step is to book an appointment. And here's our appointment booking page.
Absolutely. And so the cool thing is you can have a single outcome, you can have varied outcomes, and you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want, which is very cool. And actually, if you want to check out what this looks like, if you're listening, if you go to, I'll set up a link here for it, but if you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/quiz, I have a connect with clients assessment. So which way is the best way for you to connect with your clients in your veterinary practice? And you can go through that and see what that looks like in real time. But I built this out several different funnels that I've built out using this. And one of them was actually with Dr. Brett Beckman, who's a boarded dentist, and he helps provide CE for veterinarians. And so he did, what's your veterinary dentistry service disorder? And so like, what's your biggest struggle when it comes to your dental procedures, basically? But back when we made it, it probably took probably 3 weeks to make it. Just because there was so much work involved. And that was probably one of the biggest barriers to entry, is just if you're going to make a quiz funnel, there's a lot of process involved. And you've built something that's really, really cool. And it's part of the 3.0 software. So could you tell us what you built? Because it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you are following technology, or even if you're not following technology, then of course, you're probably familiar with the advent of large language model and generative AI technology. And the most popular, well-known brand in that space is OpenAI's ChatGPT. And one of the things that we've been spending a lot of time doing, again, we've had over 82 million people go through our technology platform. We've been doing this for a very long time. And now with the advent of LLM, large language model AI technology, we're able to build a process where, by entering just a few simple inputs, what your objectives are, what your goals are, with that information, we can actually generate all the content for creating one of these assessments. So coming up with all the questions, formulating all the branching logic, so how you might branch people into different paths based on the answers to those questions, generating the outcome or output information. So what you want to give people after they take your assessment, the report, the results that they get. So have that already created for you. And then from that, connect that to the actual output, which is a living, breathing, fully designed, fully constructed funnel that lands on your website. So where technology was a year ago, that simply was not possible. In Brandon, your case, of course, you've gone through this the manual way.
Yeah.
It's sort of akin to, I was having this conversation with someone. It's like if you in 1450, If you were a monk with good penmanship, it would take you 15 months to create a handwritten copy of the Bible. If you were Johann Gutenberg in 1454, you were producing between 150 and 180 Bibles per year with that printing press. And this is that generational leap forward. What took you 3 weeks or 6 weeks to do by hand, manually, the monk hand transcribing the Bible by hand, you're now able to do in just a matter of hours. And it's radically shortcut the process. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg on this. As I alluded to before we came on, what's super exciting is we're getting close to the point where we're able to take a form of input, a type of collateral, a type of content, whether it's a book, a video, a transcribed conversation, and use that input. And just with that input alone, put it into our machine, if you want to think about it that way. And because we have the frameworks and process for teasing out the questions one might ask to lead people to that next step, automatically create all the questions using AI, automatically create all the content using AI. And what we're very, very close to being able to do is pushing a button where that content and the questions become the fully functional quiz funnel itself without having to spend the weeks and months doing it alone. Now, I say that with a bit of, I want to temper the excitement with that, because AI still continues to be quality in, quality out. Meaning, if you don't have something of some form of, I don't want to use the word thought leadership, but expertise, I'll say, as the input portion, and I know in your case, Brandon, you've worked with boarded vets.
Yeah,
if you are not working with expertise in some way, shape, or form, it's garbage in, garbage out. So this is where I like to think of AI as being an enhancement to your brain, not a replacement for your brain. It's a way to tease out the knowledge and experience that you have, the wisdom that you've accumulated as a practitioner in your space, but organize that thinking and that information in a way that you don't have to be an expert in creating an assessment. That's the marriage. Your expertise plus the expertise in creating an assessment, AI being the bridge between those two things, and then being able to deliver an end result that's very effective, very well designed, all based on best practices, and do it in a fraction of the time with a fraction of the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the AI tool has been just incredibly helpful in guiding it. But I do think that the more expertise that you can lend to it, the better it's going to be. Otherwise, if there's no, my opinion is if you're not adding your own kind of flavor to it, there's no reason why people should go to you versus ChatGPT in general, right? And so yeah, and specifically within like working with boarded specialists who are helping to build these types of things, it's been very helpful too, because the questions that they know that they need to ask before they're going to, like a mobile euthanasia appointment, for example, that they know that they need to know, is the dog been aggressive with strangers? And, what kind of specific types of questions they want to know before they get there so that they're prepared. And obviously they're not just showing up, but if they have that information going into that conversation, it's just a complete game changer versus them getting a call from their website, having no knowledge beforehand. So totally agree, but it's so much easier now and becoming even more so, which is amazing. Definitely.
It's one of the things that we're most excited about, for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. So then I think there's just so many different applications for this. What would you say to people that are hearing this? They say, that sounds like a cool idea. That sounds great. But, typically if you're listening to podcasts, you'll get great ideas all the time. What is, you think, the best next step for somebody? Because I think there's just so much benefit. If they're interested in starting a funnel, how should they choose their first funnel topic? And how do you think the best way for them to get started would be?
Yeah, I'll be perfectly candid. I would say your best bet is to work with someone who has experience and expertise in creating this sort of thing and use the technology that's designed to do this very specific thing. Use the right technology combined with the right professional to help you make it happen. In the same way that, if I were a vet, I'd probably, if someone were to say, so what should I do to treat my dog? I'd probably say, well, work with the professional, right? Use
Definitely.
the right medicine, the right, equipment, the right, supplies, but
Yeah.
use it in combination with the right expertise. So,
Yeah.
Brandon, this is a big part of what you do. You've got expertise in this space. And, I'd say like you're a really great person to consider working with to implement something like this. And then I would advocate that use the technology that we've built to do this very thing. So you've kind of got the best of both worlds. You've got the best technology and you've got the best person who knows this space and is doing this right now as a practitioner. Now, of course, you can go out there and try to DIY it for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And many
It's
people
tough.
do, and many people do that well. So it's not to say that that's not an option. I'm a big believer in finding the expert who can do the job and use the right tool or technology in combination with that expert. Whether that's a home repair project where I'm not trying to re-shingle my entire roof,
Yeah.
whether that's repairing my car, I might know what part or what type of a vehicle that I want, but I'm going to work with a professional to do the repair work and not try to DIY it myself. And I think generally speaking, that's the best path for someone who has practical expertise in an area that's outside of the digital marketing space that we're talking about right now. So that would be my best recommendation is use Bucket, work with someone like Brandon to implement, and that's the perfect combination to get the best possible result.
I would agree. It's definitely, I've seen people try to make quizzes and things using like ManyChat and tools like that, and it is just difficult, and it's almost impossible to get the results. I think the coolest parts about Bucket is that the landing pages are built so that they're going to optimize your conversion process, but then the entire question process is so seamless, and then also it allows you to do multiple outcomes far easier than if you're trying to build a multiple outcome quiz. It's tough. It's going to take a programmer for sure, like to build something. So I think that's some really good advice in general. But when it comes to and want to be respectful of your time and everything, but as it comes to maximizing conversion for your quiz, what are some tips that you've seen, generally speaking, work really well with all of the data that you've seen come through?
Yeah, so a few things to keep in mind. First is number of questions. Generally speaking, you want to keep things to between 5 and 12 questions. Now, why is that? Well, again, we've had millions of funnels built on our platform. We have access to a tremendous amount of data at a macro level. So we're able to analyze and evaluate what represents a best practice. And you want to ask for enough information that and I'm going to use this in air quotes again, your diagnosis and prescription is accurate enough so that it's believable. In the same way that if someone walked into your practice and said, my dog is sick right now, and you're to say, did your dog eat eggs yesterday? And they say no, and then you say, I know exactly what's wrong.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
not enough information for the diagnosis to be believable. You've
Yeah.
got to ask for enough information, and at the same time, you have to remember the context through which someone is going through this experience. Most likely, they're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
They're on their phone. They are engaging with your web presence mobily with the phone in their hand. They are not going to be spending hours and hours and hours answering some type of long, detailed questionnaire. Most of the questions that you want to ask, if not all of them, are going to be close-ended, where they can just click the answer with their thumb. You don't want to ask for too much information that the person bails and drops off along the way. So there's a balance. Accurate diagnosis, but not too long. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you generally want to start with, we call it a grease the wheels question, which is a question that is designed to build action-taking momentum. You don't want to start the first question in your assessment with a big, hairy, scary question that's going to scare people off, where you're going maybe too personal too soon, or it's a very difficult question for people to think through and answer. You want to keep it short and sweet and very, very simple. Same thing with the number of answer options. You want to keep the number of answer options in any individual question typically to somewhere between 3 and 5. Now, there are exceptions to that, but what you don't want to do is which of the following 17 options is right for you.
Yeah.
What it's going to do is it's going to slow people and it's going to give them a reason to bail. Now, the beautiful thing about a technology like Bucket is it gives you access to incredibly detailed analytics. So not only are you able to see each individual response, so when someone gets on the phone with you, your team can actually see every single one of the answers that someone has given in the assessment. So they can have an intelligent conversation with that potential client, not being cold, but they can actually see it on their screen. So you have that capability. But also on top of that, you have the macro data to see, you know what? 35% of people are bailing after question 4. Maybe we need to rethink that question. Maybe we need to reword it. Maybe we need to make an adjustment to that. So you have access to that very detailed analytic package. So those are just a few best practices. We could go deep, 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 deep. What I would say, just to kind of bring it all together, is that this is one of these things that on the surface sounds very simple. Oh, so I just throw a few questions on my website. In reality, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of science that goes behind it. There's a lot of best practices. And you want to really work with a combination of resources, technology, and expertise that has gone deep in this space. Because while on the surface it may seem simple, like, treating a dog or a cat for some ailment, how hard could it be? You know that there are 1,000,001 variations, and that depth of experience that you have and the wisdom that you've accumulated along the way is what ultimately is going to yield the best outcome. And if you want the best outcome, this is a strategy that is incredibly effective. It does take work to implement. It's not as simple as just close your eyes, snap your fingers, and it's done. But when you do put it into practice, it can be transformative to any business.
Yeah, definitely. And it definitely is an asset that will last a long time for you too. So you're building an asset that'll do work for you and produce for a long time, which I think is what most people should be building in terms of marketing systems in place, because it produces a long return for you. Definitely. Totally. Well, the last question that I want to ask you, I know this might be a little in-depth here, but with veterinary medicine and veterinary marketing in general, you have two types of people that you're trying to reach: either behavioral, like they have a specific problem, they're looking for it, or demographic based, like people that, it's so cool with Google Ads specifically. I think one of the biggest underused markets to target are like very segmented. Like they have people that buy raw dog food as an example. You can target that level of detail, right? So you could get into all these like nutritional things. In your experience, does it typically work better to have the behavioral type searches and kind of intent, or demographic based when it comes to quizzes in general? Or they just, is it too many depends on things? Does that make sense?
It's a great question. And I think, so the targeting will inform the intent of that individual. And when we couple that with the outcome that we can provide someone, I think it largely informs the type of assessment-based funnel or quiz funnel that makes the most sense. So, for example, if someone is a raw dog food buyer, and we know that about that individual, then perhaps there are a series of potential quiz funnels that could make sense for that specific traffic targeting. It could be, is the raw food you're feeding your dog helping or hurting their digestive system? Take this assessment to find out now. Are there signs that you could be looking for? Someone who's searching for it, is the raw dog food you're buying really healthier for your dog? Take this assessment to find out now. So those are examples of quiz funnels that are based on that sort of subcategory. If we look at perhaps provide just another example as a contrast that might be
sure. So like a perfect one, I was just thinking, one of the segments that we don't use a lot, but is very accurate, is people that will be adding a dog or a cat to the house in the next 3 months. So you could do, is your house ready for your dog? Take this assessment type of thing.
1,000,000%, right? Is the type of dog you're considering really the right breed for you?
Yeah.
Is absolutely. This, what's the right breed for you and your family? Take the assessment to find out now. So that's a great way to build an audience of people that are maybe not in the market right now for veterinary services, but they could be in the market. And when you become the trusted advisor for someone when they're early in the journey, and you can help advise them and steer them in the right direction for breed advisory, as an example, then who are they going to turn to when they bring that puppy or fostered or adopted older dog home later that week or month or year? Who are they going to turn to when they need care?
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Definitely.
So it's the perfect way to introduce yourself and establish yourself as a trusted authority. And that's the last thing that I'll say is one of the most effective ways to not only establish a relationship, but also build trust and demonstrate your expertise is by doing it in the form of an assessment like this. You don't have to talk about the thousands of patients that you've worked with, the thousands of clients that you've had, the years of experience, all of your certifications. You can instantly demonstrate your authority and expertise by asking thoughtful questions and advising people in a way that is unique to their specific circumstances. So it is arguably the most effective way to build instant trust and credibility with a stranger on the internet who may be a great potential customer for years and years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that nails it for sure. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. Thank you for building Bucket and the Ask method. And so where can people go? Obviously, it's bucket.io, but where do you think the best place for people to learn more is?
Yeah, if you go to askmethod.com, that'll take you to our parent company website. Bucket.io is our technology platform that we've been talking about here today. And if you want to follow what I'm doing, what I'm up to, what I'm sharing on social media, you can find me pretty much anywhere at Ask Ryan Levesque. So Ask Ryan Levesque. And you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all the places that you might find someone and hear what we're up to and what we're talking about. So that's the best place. Brandon, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me to be a guest on your show, and look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.